While I participated in Clubhouse discussions, I noticed something really interesting. Have you ever heard of James Flynn effect? It asserts that as time goes by, the average IQ value of in the industrialized nations would increase. And there are many ways to explain this. I heard that on average there would be increase of about 7 points on the IQ scale over a decade. So, and that actually has to be taken into account when you would like to calculate the IQ of a person relative to the population, because the average would increase, so you have to adjust for that. So that's the Flynn effect, and I am quite interested in the possibility that Clubhouse would probably accelerate the IQ of brain, because the cognitive load in the typical Clubhouse room is much higher than the traditional communication environment that we have been accustomed to. So I have been moderating the Clubhouse room. It's mainly in the Japanese domain. And I noticed something. Just listening to a Clubhouse discussion is higher in terms of cognitive load compared to radio and TV. Because, in the Clubhouse discussion, turn taking between speakers occurs in a more efficient and compressed way. And also, there are no embodiments, so that there are no extra superfluous information about our body and our facial expression. That would mean that everything is more abstract and conceptualized, and we can focus on the gist of things. I mean, the most important essential aspects of the themes. So that makes the discussion, typical discussions on the Clubhouse, much more complex than the traditional media such as radio and TV. So just by listening, you would increase the cognitive load on your brain. And on top of that, if you become a speaker, naturally your cognitive load would be much higher. And in this capacity, you need to pay attention to what the other people are saying. And in a traditional panel discussion, if you're on a panel, as I have been many times, the space between you and the other person would mean that there are many other distractors, like you might be distracted by some movements in the arena, or you might be amused by some joke that somebody says, and that would lead to a laughter. But on Clubhouse, unfortunately, the audience cannot laugh. I mean, you cannot hear the audience laugh. So that wouldn't, a comical situation wouldn't lead to a relapse in the conversation. So that means that in Clubhouse, everything is complex. Everything is so, done in an intense way. So if you are a speaker on Clubhouse room, you would be expected to speak in a much more condensed way. And on top of that, if you become a moderator of the room, you have to make many decisions in addition to speaking. For example, you should decide whether to allow a participant to speak when he or she asked to do so. And also, you would be looking at the profile of the attendees, and when somebody seems to be appropriate for the topic that is being discussed, you might want to invite him or her to as a speaker. So that means that as a moderator, probably you will be looking at the profiles of the attendees, and you'll be judging how to incorporate his or her own expertise into the discussion. So as a moderator, you really have to attend to all these things, and you have to process all the more information. So in Clubhouse, the cognitive load, the typical cognitive load on your brain is much higher than the typical average conventional environment. Now that is really interesting, because some AI researchers have suggested that the human brain is the most important resource to be tapped into in the age of AI. We talk about great advancement of artificial intelligence for example, the AlphaZero program by DeepMind, and also these wonderful achievements by OpenAI projects, including most quite recently DALI. I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway, this is the AI engine that would generate illustrations and pictures if you put some text to that, like a turtle in a forest. And so these progresses are really remarkable. But from energy efficiency point of view, these artificial intelligence systems consume incredible lot of energy, and that can be also said about the cryptocurrencies. By the way, if you want to calculate, you know, so that you would generate a proof of work, and so you can mine the cryptocurrencies, that would lead to a lot of wattage, and which is not really nice for the Earth's environment. But so if you look at the human brain, with a refreshed view in the age of AI, you would find that this guy is very very energy efficient. A Japanese shogi player, Humi Kato, he is known to play Japanese shogi, Japanese chess, shogi, based on just a lunch of eels. And it's a very famous anecdote. And he always eats eels at lunch, and and he can go on hours thinking about shogi, and that is much much more energy efficient compared to AlphaZero. And so, the human brain is incredibly efficient in processing information. And especially when it comes to creativity, the human brain has no comparison yet. So, but in order to, make this wonderful guy work harder, you really need to make a connection between this wonderful brain thing. And in order to make this connection, Clubhouse is a really super platform, because using Clubhouse, you can actually connect people in a really efficient way, and in a way that is not be hindered by such things as embodiment and social norms and all these extra bits. Of course, people have been arguing that symbolic systems are not sufficient, and we do need embodiment for real, intelligence to emerge. But hey, we have embodiment. I have my embodiment. I have my brain here in this space, and but I have also my body, my face, and that is something that is so natural to me. But if it's so natural that you don't have to really, boast about it. I mean, in the era of AI, these things would remain, and you would probably eat and exercise and so on. These are the extra bits. But when it comes to certain aspects of creativity, it doesn't really matter whether you have a body or not. All that matters is the nature of information that is processed in your brain and between your brains. And in order to optimize that process, just talking about embodiment is not sufficient. I really admire the great robots of Boston Dynamics, but hey, these are not networked, and and on top of that, you really don't have to have all these wonderful embodiments, artificial embodiments, in order to nurture your creativity in the internet era. Just think about the internet memes. Do we have embodiment there? No, we don't. But the memes evolved in a rapid way without the explicit engagement of our bodies. So that's that reality of creativity in the internet and artificial intelligence era. And Clubhouse, interestingly, depends on auditory signals. That means that compared to vision, which is very rich in visual qualia, auditory information is much more complex and much more conceptual, so that you can really concentrate on what is being said in terms of the really abstract level of information and systemic considerations. So that's, I think, is what's happening on Clubhouse. And it's good that it is not recorded and it is not archived, because it doesn't really matter whether it is archived or recorded for later review, because creativity happens on the spot. And once it happens, the brain never forgets it. So, I think the most important mission of the Clubhouse platform is to have these aha moments in which you realize something. And that realization comes only from the really tense, intense interactions between brains. And for that, I think Clubhouse is a really optimum and promising platform. So here's to the Clubhouse.